As the Communist Party of Great Britain Marxist-Leninist has noted in a resolution passed at its Congress last year, and quote from that resolution, "In nearly 60 years since the founding of the People's Republic, the Chinese people, under the leadership of the Communist Party and guided by the science of Marxism-Leninism and its concrete application to their specific conditions, Mao Zedong thought, have weathered and overcome all manner of challenges and difficulties and have scored enormous achievements in rebuilding their country along socialist lines. So what was, in 1949, one of the poorest, most backward and most wretched societies on earth, is now advancing as a great world power, increasingly in the front ranks of global economy, culture, science and technology. In the course of this process, the lives of the Chinese people have been improved immeasurably, with hundreds of millions of people lifted out of poverty." And as George told us earlier, that is human rights. 10 years ago, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic at a function held in Havana on the 29th of September 1999, Comrade Fidel Castro observed as follows: "Only socialism can feed 1.25 billion Chinese, give them a home, a television for each Chinese family, and many other household articles, and especially the essential resources for life. That is to say, that country feeds approximately 22% of the world's population with 7% of the world's agricultural lands. The country went through periods of starvation under the domination of the feudal lords and capitalism, always allied with colonial and dominating powers, when the population was only 400 or 500 million. Today the population has tripled and hunger has been eradicated forever." Comrades, as we know and as other speakers have already said, all of this is a very far cry indeed from the China of 60 years ago. Then, as I've just noted, the country was one of the poorest and most wretched on earth. It had been torn apart by imperialists, warlords and other reactionaries, and the masses of people led a miserable and precarious existence. In the 1930s and 1940s, every morning, the bodies of the dead who had succumbed to cold, hunger and disease were collected from the streets in the centre of Beijing and other cities. In the vast countryside, millions fell victims to famine in any given year. In turning this situation around over the past 60 years, the Chinese economy has grown by an average annual rate of 8.1% over the past 60 years. And this despite periods of political upheaval, war, natural disasters, and long periods of economic blockade. Infant mortality has plummeted and life expectancy has increased from 35 to 73 years. According to a recent article in Time magazine, maternal mortality per 100,000 has declined from 1,500 to 34.2. Whereas scarcely more than 100,000 people were in higher education when China was liberated, now Time notes as follows: some 21 million students attend university today, while an estimated 300,000 study abroad every year. Approximately 260 million Chinese children attend primary and secondary schools. Basic literacy is almost universal in China today, while it was roughly 20% in 1949. China has now abolished all taxes for farmers, while spending massively to ensure compulsory 9-year free education for all rural children, along with introducing a new cooperative rural medical programme and a new rural pension scheme to guarantee security and dignity in old age. Since the latter part of 2008, faced with the impact of the international financial crisis, the Chinese government, as other speakers have mentioned, has put in place a massive fiscal stimulus package. This focuses on expanding domestic demand so as to drive domestic growth through expanded consumption and investment. For example, in rural areas, the government is offering subsidies and discounts to promote sales of home appliances, including televisions and computers, farm machinery and vehicles, particularly energy-efficient vehicles. Of the total sum of central government investment allocated by the end of this July, 52.4% had gone to subsidised housing, projects to improve farmers' living standards and social programmes. 24.7% has been channeled into such areas as innovation, energy conservation, emission reduction and improving the environment. And 22.9% has been earmarked for major infrastructure projects. The 2009 central government budget for education, medical and healthcare services, social security, employment, subsidised housing and other programmes related to the livelihood of working people is 29.4% higher than that of last year. Just imagine, an increase of nearly 30% in the space of 1 year. Imagine and compare it to the present situation in Britain, where each of the three main bourgeois parties are now reduced to competing as to which can offer the most savage cuts, to use the charming expression of liberal democracy. Within a year, our masters will serve up an election in which three groups of expense-fiddling shysters, not to say imperialist mass murderers, will compete as to who can crack the whip harder across the back of the working class. The reason why there is such a contrast between a country like China, where social provision for working people can be increased by a third in the space of a year, and a country like Britain, in which the rulers increasingly do not even pretend to offer anything but misery to the working masses, even though China is still a developing country, and Britain is a country that has grown fat by looting half the world, not least China, for several centuries, is very simple. In China, the oppressed and downtrodden rallied behind a communist party. They overcame innumerable and indescribable hardships, but finally they were successful. They sent domestic and foreign exploiters packing, and working people set up a state and a society in which they are the masters and the government exists to serve them. It is a matter of which class holds power, and hence whose needs are considered paramount. In celebrating the 60th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, as with the Great October Socialist Revolution that created the Soviet Union, which will be celebrated next month, and I'm sure the Chair will give the details before the meeting closes, but in celebrating such anniversaries, this is by far the most important lesson for working people in Britain. However, comrades, in celebrating the achievements of the Chinese people, and in resolutely defending China from its imperialist detractors and its hegemonist adversaries, we never mean to suggest that China yet presents a model of developed, mature or complete socialism. China is still a developing country and has a long way to go. Much that is being done in China is in the nature of an experiment, albeit on a huge scale, a matter of trial and error. As to the final outcome, only time will tell. There are huge risks and grave shortcomings in many areas. The Chinese leaders themselves do not deny this. In the last 3 decades, China has adopted a policy of widely introducing foreign capital, technology and expertise, allowing the re-emergence and development of a domestic private sector and producing for export. The intention behind this policy has been to use a period of peace to rapidly develop the country and to overcome backwardness. Referring to this experience, the previously quoted Congress resolution of the CPGB-ML noted as follows: in introducing elements of a market economy, the Chinese comrades have pointed out that their country is today only in the primary stage of socialism. Alongside China's undeniable achievements, serious problems have arisen, including, but by no means limited, to wealth, income and regional disparity, corruption, grave shortcomings in public education and healthcare, and environmental degradation. And comrades, just as we rejoice at all China's great achievements, we are greatly concerned by these issues, not only as we are staunch friends of the Chinese people and earnestly wish them nothing but the best, but also because such negative phenomena cannot but have an impact on the image and prestige of socialism in the eyes of working and oppressed people throughout the world. And this matter becomes particularly acute when faced as we are today with the cataclysmic crisis of the capitalist system. Due to China's extensive integration into the global economy, one that is still dominated by the capitalist mode of production, as a result of the policies pursued over the last 3 decades, China cannot remain immune from some negative consequences of the current crisis. China is now seeking appropriate ways, such as the massive fiscal stimulus package to which I referred a little earlier, and working hard to overcome them. We are proletarian internationalists, so we take our stand with Lenin, who noted as follows: there is one and only one kind of real internationalism, and that is working wholeheartedly for the development of the revolutionary movement and the revolutionary struggle in one's own country, and supporting, by propaganda, sympathy and material aid, this struggle, this and only this line, in every country without exception. China has made great progress, and especially at this 60th anniversary, there is much to celebrate. We sincerely hope that everything will go well in China. We earnestly wish that the Communist Party, the government and the people of China will defend their revolutionary gains, eliminate shortcomings and score new and greater victories in building socialism. In such endeavours, they will have our unwavering support. Long live the Communist Party of China, long live the People's Republic of China, long live Marxism, Leninism and proletarianism.